Oh baby, Junkrat, my favourite character in the game, bar none. The guy is an absolute hero. So, what the hell has happened to Junkrat? Well, on the previous version of the PTR, and the PTR has gone down right now, it's going to receive some more updates and stuff, we think, to game modes and stuff like that. I don't necessarily think Junkrat's going to see any more changes. He might do, who knows. Anyway, this is the change. You're probably thinking, Sly, what are you doing? You're just firing bombs at yourself in the spawn. Well, I'm actually outside of the area where you get auto-healed, and you'll notice I'm taking no damage. I am being knocked back, which is kind of interesting, but I'm taking no damage. Now, this is the change. Junkrat cannot kill himself. Now, this is great, right? Because if you think of the whole sort of fantasy of Junkrat, he's this mad bomber, right? He blows stuff up. He's this crazed demolitions expert. And that's what he is, right? And Blizzard are very invested in the whole idea of characters having an identity, having a fantasy. And Junkrat's fantasy, obviously, is the guy who just blows everything up. So when he was blowing himself up, it kind of made sense, right? He blows himself up, he does damage to himself, he leaves his little bombs behind, and great, and that's all fine. But now he can no longer kill himself. That's actually a major change, because what this does is it lets you play Junkrat a bit more like Junkrat. You can be way more reckless. Like, you can just run into close range battles and fire your bombs everywhere. It's actually pretty strong against Winston and people like that, whereas before, if Winston's jumping in your face, or like a diva, and you're trying to fire at them, you're damaging yourself and you'll probably die before they die, which isn't great. So that's awesome. Now let me tell you a little story about Junkrat, because he is my favourite character in the entire game. During the end of the closed beta, I think it was literally the last few days of the closed beta, I was lucky enough to be invited to Blizzard's European headquarters, and we played Overwatch in their swanky setup, and I pretty much just played Junkrat. Like, he was my favourite character. I just played him. We didn't really care for team sort of builds, or, you know, we didn't really understand about balance at that time, because we hadn't really had competitive to play. Well, it wasn't even in the game then at that point, and all that good stuff. So I played Junkrat. I absolutely love this character, but what kills me is I don't play him when I play competitive. Now, you guys know me. I generally play a lot of competitive, and I like to play heroes that I know will have an impact. Now, I guess that comes down to, like, hero viability, and Junkrat, his viability is minimal. What we've got with Junkrat is he's very effective on certain points. Now, this gameplay footage you're seeing, it's PTR, right? I always say this with PTR stuff. The teams are all over the place. The player ability is all over the place. Everybody wants to try new heroes. PTR is a bit of a mess for testing stuff, but you can kind of get a feel for the way things are going to go. Anyway, Junkrat is very strong on certain maps, and, well, certain points of certain maps. I would say very strong on the current first point of Iconvolt, although we know Iconvolt is being looked at, and hopefully that's what gets changed with when the PTR comes back up, with a possible different flanking route for the first point. But anyway, as of right now, very strong there. Hanamura, very strong, because there's only really one way to get into the point. Junkrat can spam. The first point of Anubis, even actually the second point of Anubis, isn't too bad. Anywhere where you can spam with Junkrat, he is insanely strong, and that's what he is, right? He spams chokes, he destroys people. So let's think about Orisa. You can see Orisa standing right in front of me here. This is actually going to make Junkrat a little bit more viable, because Junkrat is extremely good at blowing up barriers. Now, if you're attacking a choke like this, and there was a Junkrat on the attack against this Orisa, it wouldn't actually be too bad, because imagine if there was a Reinhardt as well. The Junkrat could spam through those shields, and that's good, effective damage, getting rid of the barriers. Obviously, there's an argument to be made that, yes, maybe you would just run around the Orisa barrier, why take the Junkrat? Maybe you could take a Genji instead, whatever. Maybe take a Pharah, because she's going to be more effective overall in the game. Who knows? Now, one thing I do want to say, though, is Junkrat as a character is still not the best. And the reason why he's not the best is because he's no good at effective eliminations. He's no good at securing kills. What Junkrat does is outputs a ton of damage, a ton of AoE damage. And let's be honest here, you can aim with Junkrat, but a lot of it is just playing the percentages. You know where somebody is, you know they're coming through a choke, you fire loads of projectiles in there, you do damage, right? Are you going to kill them? Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Like there, I killed that Winston there. I knew he was over there, so I'm just firing. It's like I am aiming at him, but like all these bombs I'm throwing down here, this is actually a good example. So I'm chucking them through the choke. That's great, that's fine. But if they're taking damage there, they're not actually dying. Their healers heal them up. If they're Roadhog, they heal themselves. Basically what I'm trying to say is Junkrat just charges enemy ultimates, and that is the biggest problem with Junkrat. He enables the enemy team to the point of it being a detriment to your own team quite a lot. This is because it's very difficult for Junkrat to secure the kills. Yes, he can get kills. I'm not saying he can't get kills. He totally does. You can see me getting kills in this video. As I say, it's PTR. It's not competitive, blah, blah, blah. But actually, watch this here. This shows you with the Riptide. You can be crazy and offensive with the Riptide. That would have killed me. On live, that would have killed me. Granted, I was in a stupid position. But I would never have done something like that on live because I would die. And that's going to open up a whole sort of different avenue of different ways of using Junkrat's Riptide, which is still probably one of the worst ultimates in the game because it's just so easy to get rid of, and it's kind of difficult to get into a position to do a lot of damage. It's easier now because you can detonate it on yourself, which is cool. Anyway, so effective eliminations. This is Junkrat's major problem, and this is something I want Blizzard to fix, and I've got a few ideas. Unfortunately, they come from Team Fortress 2. Now, we know Blizzard love Team Fortress 2, and that's, let's be honest, what Overwatch takes inspiration from in some regards. The demo man, what about sticky bombs or timed projectiles that you can actually detonate yourself? So imagine if Junkrat could fire his projectiles in a clump and then blow them all up. That would be effective damage, because what that would do is allow Junkrat to control when he does damage, because right now Junkrat doesn't control when he does damage. Yes, he's doing the same sort of damage that Farah does per hit, which is a lot. I think it's 120 per bomb, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a lot of damage, yeah? But it's damage which is all inconsistent all over the place, and its damage healers will more often than not out heal, and if they're out healing that damage because it's massive splash damage, then it means they're charging ultimates, which then means the Junkrat on your team is actually not killing the enemy but giving them ultimate charge, and this is the perennial problem with Junkrat. So things like being able to control when your bombs detonate, I think that will be a great change. I don't know whether that would be OP or what, we'd have to test it. Having sticky bombs that stick to a target, maybe reducing the range of the detonation on his bomb, so the bombs are more pinpoint, but if they stick to a target, that gives you a bit more, and then you could obviously control the time they detonate. That would give you a bit more like leeway to control what you're doing with your damage, because right now Junkrat's damage is massively inconsistent. It's very high, but it's very AoE, it's very splash damage, which means that, yeah, you will get the gold medal for damage. You'll probably get the gold medal for eliminations as well, because you're affecting everyone with a splash damage. But are you actually killing them? Would a Farah be better? Probably in a lot of cases. Would any other kind of DPS hero be better? Yeah, probably in a lot of other cases. Like, Junkrat is a very unique character. He's a special character because, like I said, he's one of my favourite characters, and that's why I think he's special. You know, I just like Junkrat. I want to be able to play Junkrat more than just playing him on, like, Sanctum Nepal, which is actually quite strong on, because you know they're going to come through a choke, or playing him on the first point of Hanamura, or, you know, playing him on Iconfold, and even then people are like, oh, can we swap the Junkrat? And it's not great to listen to, not when it's your favourite character, you know. I just wish that he could be made more viable. What I want you guys to do in the comments below is, like, discuss, how do you think Junkrat could be made a bit more viable? I do think he's a fun character, so Blizzard have totally nailed that down. I do like this change where he doesn't damage himself, because you're going to watch me in a second be quite reckless, and I can just, well, actually, I'm going to die now, I think. But yeah, look at this, right? That's still reckless behaviour. I'm bombing myself there. I'm going to die to the Winston, whatever. You know, you see me earlier on when I was fighting around the point where I killed the Winston at point blank range. You couldn't do that on live. You would die. So I think this is great. Also, one little thing I want to touch on is the whole idea of dive comps coming back into the game. They are coming back into the game, and I think with a lot of the changes that were on the PTR, we're probably going to see more of them, especially with Sombra coming back with, well, I say coming back, Sombra just having power, so you're going to see her in a lot of games. This is sort of more conducive to dive comps, and obviously with Winston's barrier buff and stuff like that, there's just going to be more dive. Junkrat is actually quite good against dive comps, because if you get right into Junkrat's face now, he's taking no damage, and yes, it is the real stake bait. He's taking absolutely no damage, right? But he's outputting a ton of damage to you at close range. In fact, Junkrat is probably one of the highest damage heroes right now at point blank range. Yeah, Reaper's still obviously going to put out a lot of damage, but if you're in close quarters with Junkrat, you really don't want that. Like, you absolutely don't want that. You imagine on Numbani, this is actually a very interesting map where a lot of dive comps do happen on the attack. So a dive comp is basically, you know, you take a D.Va, you take a Winston, a Lucio, maybe you take a Farah. You could even take a Widow with that if you want. But basically it revolves around D.Va, the Winston, maybe a Zarya. So you've got 3 people to dive in, or you do a Winston, a Genji, and a Zarya. You just need 2 people to at least get in there onto the back line. And what you would do is you run up through main, run past the bus, you don't go lower, you go through main, and you dive into the back right. More often than not, you'll catch the soldier, you'll catch the enemy Ana, and you jump right onto them and you kill them. But imagine if there was a Junkrat there now. That Junkrat could trap the Winston as he dives in and do a ton of damage to them, because they're coming into his sort of domain, into his close range environment where they're going to take a massive amount of damage. And that's what interests me about Junkrat, because I think he's going to be a bit more viable on some other maps. He's still really inconsistent with damage, and he is still not going to be the best at securing kills in the long term. But in certain niche situations, I think he's actually quite strong, and I think we are going to see a bit more Junkrat usage. I don't think it's going to be astronomical. I don't think it's like suddenly Junkrat's going up to like an S tier, top tier pick. We're not going to see that. He's still a fun character. He's more fun now. They've changed him so he doesn't damage himself. But is it enough? I don't know. Like I said, I'd like the ability to detonate my own explosives, or maybe have some sort of sticky bomb, or maybe something like that. Guys, go crazy in the comments below. Let me know what you think. I love Junkrat, and I just want to see him succeed. He is literally my favourite character, and he always will be. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Stylosa, and this is Unit Lost. If you enjoyed the video, then like the video. Subscribe to the channel. If you're a Junkrat main, well, I love you, man. I wish I could be a Junkrat main. I'll catch you next time, guys. Toodaloo.